There was a time when Dublin had an IMAX cinema, a proper IMAX cinema. The IMAX 70mm projector, the giant screen, the whole experience made you feel like you were inside the movie. But today, with the release of Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey, it's left a lot of us here, not just in Dublin but in Ireland, wondering, where can we see The Odyssey as Christopher Nolan intended? And the answer is, you can't. And that raises a pretty obvious question: why no proper IMAX in Ireland? Is it simply because nobody's bothered, or is it a little bit more complex than that? If you're brand new to my channel or you've been a long-time viewer, you will have noticed my previous video was a feature-length documentary about Dublin's original IMAX cinema, the Sheridan IMAX cinema. In that documentary, I looked at the history of the cinema, what made it special, the experience the staff and people had, and why it ultimately failed. I think an important thing to understand here in this video is that Dublin and Belfast both had original proper IMAX cinemas back in the late 90s to the early 2000s. People went to them, people enjoyed their experience, and ultimately they both closed down. Which leads to the question again, why is there no proper IMAX in Ireland? And also leads to the question, could we ever have one again? The short answer is, it's possible. The long answer is, it's very complicated. So some of you may be watching this video and saying, there is IMAX cinemas in Dublin. There's Cineworld and there's the Odeon in Blanchardstown. So what is IMAX? IMAX means different things, different screen sizes, different aspect ratios, different experiences. Cineworld and Odeon have what's disaffectionately known as LIMAX, which is a 1.90 to 1 aspect ratio. Original proper IMAX is 1.43 to 1 aspect ratio, so a picture that's twice as tall as the current IMAX screens operating in Dublin. For most of the cinema-going audience, the IMAX screens that we currently have are better than standard cinema screens, and they have no problem at all. So what is the big deal all about? We're talking about traditional IMAX 1.43 to 1 aspect ratio, screens that are 60 foot wide, 80 foot high, 70mm IMAX film projection systems, true IMAX. We're talking about a purpose-built auditorium, even a purpose-built building. And this is where the problems come in. One of the biggest challenges is something that the audience may not even think about: the actual IMAX 70mm film projector. The last time they were manufactured was the 1990s. There's only 40 in existence in the world right now. They don't manufacture spare parts. They retrofit them to keep them operational. This all means that running an IMAX 70mm projector these days is a difficult task. You have to have engineers who know how to fix the machine, projectionists who know how to run the machine, and you have to find spare parts. And if that's not the case, you need to be able to retrofit something to keep the projector running. Think about that for a moment. If you were able to build a brand new proper IMAX cinema today, you can't just order one of these like you can order a digital projector or a 4K laser projector and have it arrive in 2 weeks. It's just not possible. IMAX themselves are actively on the hunt to find these old projectors worldwide. They don't even know where some of them went. It's becoming increasingly rare to find one of these IMAX film projectors, and if you do, you need someone to install it, you need someone to run it, and you need someone to maintain it. This is specialist cinema equipment that just comes from another era in cinema. And every year that passes, it becomes increasingly difficult to keep those machines operational. So even if you have a building, you have a problem finding a projector. Okay, let's say you solve the projector problem. You randomly find one. It's operational. The next question is, where do you put this massive building? It needs to be a purpose-built building. The original site was the Parnell Centre in Dublin, where Cineworld currently sits. Now, I will say, having worked in that cinema, it was 5 floors. It doesn't need to be 5 floors. Even if you built a brand new building on ground level, it needs to be at least 3 floors high. Where do you find the space in Dublin to build something that big? A proper IMAX cinema isn't just a regular cinema. You can't make a regular cinema into an IMAX without extensive space to build upwards. It's a purpose-built auditorium based around the experience. You need a massive screen, you need the right viewing angles for the audience, you need the correct throw distance for the projector to be away from the screen. You need a projection booth capable of housing tons and tons and tons of machine weight. Everything has to work together. That's why building a proper IMAX cinema from scratch is a huge construction project. You simply aren't taking an existing screen, stick an IMAX logo above it, and there you go. It's not as simple as that. All of this obviously comes with a very large price tag. The construction cost alone would be enormous. And then you have to ask an awkward question. Would the Irish cinema going market support a proper IMAX cinema? Then you have the content problem, because even if you build a brand new IMAX giant cinema, what are you going to show? This is the next challenge. IMAX 70mm film doesn't have a constant stream of content, i.e. there isn't movies being shot on IMAX film constantly where you have a brand new release every 2, 3, 4 weeks. There may be once, twice, 3 times a year at best. So you also have to have a digital projection system in place. The cost and the logistics alone in getting an IMAX 70mm film print to the cinema is a massive cost as well. You need the film prints, you need the projector, you need the projectionists, and you need the audience to show up to watch those films. This all means that a brand new proper IMAX cinema in Dublin, in Ireland, would have to be more than just a place to go to see the latest blockbuster on film. It has to become a destination, a place people will travel to see IMAX films. It has to be a place that hosts special screenings, classic films, documentaries, music, alternative content, film festivals, film premieres, limited engagements. Because if you're spending millions building a purpose-built cinema, you can't rely on Hollywood to keep giving you the content. You have to look at a back catalogue of films as well. Then we come to one of the biggest problems of all, us, the audience. There is a question of whether we would part ways with our hard-earned money each and every week. Let's be honest, tickets for IMAX are more expensive than a standard cinema ticket. At the minute, we're talking anywhere from 23 to 30 euro per ticket. Are you willing to part with around 30 euro per week to keep seeing the new films in IMAX? Let's say we build an incredible brand new IMAX cinema. We get the film projector, we get the movies. How do we convince the audience to come back every week? And essentially you have to convince the audience to pay for this brand new cinema that cost millions. The question then becomes, how often is the cinema going audience willing to pay that money? Because think about it, you have people who will only go to the cinema once a year, twice a year. Oh, let's go, that new Christopher Nolan movie is out in IMAX. Christopher Nolan only does movies on average every 3 years. They may go once, they pay their 30 euro. Okay, we saw the new Nolan film on IMAX, I'll wait till the next one. That's a massive problem for the cinema. And remember, this is all happening at a time when people have access to lots of content at home. They have home entertainment, they have surround sound, they have 4K TVs, they have Netflix, they have Disney Plus, they have Amazon, they have all these things to stream content to directly in their house. No messing, no people on phones, no talking, no projectors breaking down. It's a tough sell. So you have to give the audience a reason to leave the house, a reason to be willing to pay up to 30 euro per week, and a reason to make them come back again and again. Another challenge that's easy to overlook is the IMAX attention span. Sure, you go to an IMAX 1.43 to 1 70mm screening, you're blown away by the visuals and by the sound system. But how do you keep people interested in that? We need you to come back again and again and again. You have to convince people this isn't something you should only experience once, but multiple times. Because you're operating a premium cinema, you need return customers and you have to convince them that it's worth coming back to, and you have to have different content to offer them on those return visits. There's also a problem in that every film is not going to justify the price of an IMAX ticket. Not every audience member is going to care about the IMAX format. For them, the film is the film, no matter how they see it. They'll happily watch the film anywhere. The problem is convincing them to part with their hard-earned money to specifically go to an IMAX cinema. And sometimes that's a difficult proposition. So at the end of all this, could Dublin or even Ireland get a proper IMAX 70mm film cinema back again? The short answer is probably. Personal answer is I don't think so. It's not as simple as saying somebody should build one. Where can we put it? Let's get the projector. All the points that I've made here. It's not that easy. The equipment is old. It's hard to come by. It's hard to keep operational. Staff can be trained. The building could be found. It would be incredibly expensive to build, but would it succeed? One of the biggest questions is Is there an audience large enough willing to pay to keep an IMAX cinema, to keep that business viable longer than the 2 years it lasted originally? Okay, we didn't have commercial cinema, commercial movies at the time. It's a very tough ask, very tough question. That's why you mostly see the smaller 1.90 to 1 IMAX screens that we have at present attached to multiplex cinemas. They need other screens, non-IMAX content to keep the business viable. It's a very tough question and it's really hard to predict. If a purpose-built 143 to 1 70mm IMAX cinema would be a viable business in Ireland today. Ireland has one of the largest going cinema audiences per capita in Europe, which is not to be overlooked either. We love going to the cinema, but it's trying to convince that audience to come back over and over and over and give them an experience that they cannot get at home. I think there's something incredibly special about bringing a proper IMAX back to Ireland. I would be one of the first people applying for a job. I would love to work in an IMAX cinema again. I worked in the original one back in 2000 and it was a great time. So at the end of all this, maybe the real question isn't why does Dublin not have a proper IMAX? Maybe the question should be, could Dublin support a proper IMAX? Because if someone was willing to take the risk, pay for the building, find the projector, find the movies, find the staff, open the cinema, could it be viable? We convince the audience to come back week after week. Maybe, just maybe, we could sustain a proper IMAX in Dublin. Because sometimes the problem with bringing IMAX back isn't the screen or the building or the projector. It's the audience. Convincing the people to fill the seats show after show, day after day, week after week. I would love to hear from you all in the comments down below. Let me know what you think about Dublin, even Ireland, getting a proper IMAX screen back in the country with a film projector system. Let me know what you think.